Part 2 of fake news and police helicopter cover-ups from November 1st. Also, a quick note, at 7 minutes and 30 seconds in part 1, I said that I hope everyone's following along. I'm sure you did. And I didn't mean to act like I was talking to a class or talking down or anything like that. I was trying to explain about the progression of the combination of helicopters. Before, there was a phase where they combined the military, the UN, and the police helicopter by model and by paint. And as I was explaining that, then I was thinking that I'm sure everyone does know, because and then I was saying that because there's a phase of that going on right now. But when I heard it, it sounded pretty special. So in part 1, I left off on the police Cessna copter, and so at 12:06 to 12:25, I had seen the police Cessna copter with its random spotlight that comes on every now and then, sporadically, and he was flying all around in the spots, including the October 30th event out behind the two-story house across the street. And that's significant because I'm going to get to that later about how they just incorporate a new damning event into a routine. And then so this entire day, they had the police helicopter flying around throwing sound for the police Cessna copter. So even though I only saw him at 12:06 to 12:25, and then I have all these events I'm about to explain that come up to an event at 2:46, the police Cessna copter was around my house during that entire time period. I just didn't see him the whole time. And so they were doing the spotlight cover-up, and they were also doing the fabricated evidence for the October 16th event cover-up. I heard police helicopter sounds in the park at 12:39, 12:42, 12:55. I saw the Cessna copter again at 1:03 with his random spotlight, and then at 1:09, 1:37, 1:45, and 1:51, I heard the copter in the park. And then at 2:08 until 2:12, I saw the police Cessna copter, the random spotlight. And then at 2:18, 2:40, I heard copter sounds in the park again. And also, on top of that, there was a significant event this morning with the police helicopter and the UN cover-up copter that is now mixed slightly with the military copter. And there was one of those recently where they flew a blackish UN cover-up copter that had the aggressive nose of a military copter, similar to the shape of a Black Hawk, but nothing like one, and it was tuned different. And the reason I believe that they're doing this is to cover up for the sounds. So I'm going to do UN copter cover-up reviews later, but the sounds are significant because of the June 1st event. And so I was bringing up the UN copter because they had a damning event earlier where they did the UN copter and the police helicopter were evading each other. Therefore, the UN copter cover-up turned at 24191, and the police helicopter also turned on my roof. So they were trying to do the hill cover-up, and then the police helicopter was doing a cover-up on my roof with a turn. And also, it's significant because of the context of last night's videos and some of the things I said and talked about certain cover-up parts, like the turn and his psychotic event on October 4th or 5th. And so they immediately after that, there was all this commotion in the park and stuff, because I was talking about how those things are conflicted, because one of them is situational and the other is locational, so it didn't make sense. And also, aside from having just a situational and locational, they're also having two separate situational cover-ups, and the police helicopter combined about 4 or 5, and the UN cover-up copter combined about 3. And so that is so many things that are all separate and now brought together. And so it just gives credence to the fact that it's all BS, even though it is. But I'm not good at explaining the things properly to point out the parts that are beyond a reasonable doubt, or whatever, however it works. So at 2:46, the police helicopter crossed up out of El Dorado Park. He was flying up the park towards Montevideo Elementary School, and he crossed out and he made a left, and he crossed over 3 houses down over the October 16th event, and then out over the 2-story house. And then he made a slight right, and then he gradually dropped. And so they're doing a cover-up for the dissensions where they did the count. The first day it was descend 2, 3, 4, descend 2, 3, 4, and then the next day it was descend, descend, descend 4, descend, descend, descend 4. And so now it's changed a little bit. And so one of the things is that once they go down the hill or they make a turn at 24191, the hole for like maybe 80 yards it's a smooth descension like a normal person would do, but then they do the little bit of drops at the end. And part of the reason for that is because it's farther away from me, so some of them I wouldn't be able to see unless I was on the roof. But I got up on top of the truck and saw most of them and got some of the counts. And so that was part of it. And then another part of it was variations to make it that the hill, the small 5% grade, is a problem. And they've also started to say that the 2-story house and the tree there are a problem. They even have the Cessnas and the police copter doing U-turns there. And so earlier they had the UN copter do the variation where he flew the length of the fake 5% grade in order to have like an extended, like basically they're hitting all the variations. So they've done circles on it, they've done flying down it in a huge diagonal, and now so this was a drop straight down over it. And this is also a cover up for the tail wave event, and I don't have the date of when the origination of that, but that was when he did the tail wave. And then so like this is the cover up of all cover ups, and then he went down and got stuck at Geronimo Montilla, and then I ran out of storage space and he chased me back to my house and I deleted the apps. And so that's where one of the returns originated too. And also the tail wave, the UN copter that flew across, the cover up one that flew across the 2-story house and then made a left 90-degree turn because I was out in the street early. I had jumped the wall and I was waiting for him. And so he turned and did a tail wave too. And so he did the gradual descent, and then he did, I call them drop counts. So he did drop counts out there beyond that, but he did the tail wave across the street, and that's the cover up for when he taunted me. And so at 3:03, I saw the police copter Cessna, and then at 3:32, and then at 2:30, there was the police copter was throwing sound for the police copter Cessna, and then I saw the Cessna finally at 3:03. And then at 3:32, the police helicopter flew in the same route out of up El Dorado Park, and then he made a left and exited, and then went over the October 16th house, and then the 2-story house. And so he did the tail wave cover up again, because now it's for sure a regular thing because he did it twice. And he also did it twice on that house, so that's a big deal. That's far more than once. So now it's over there, and my house is in the hot spot. And then so he went over the hill, sold the hill thing again to cover up for the military copter turn, and he did a smooth descent. So he did a right curve descent that was smooth, and then he did a left turn ascending. And so this part is conflicted a little bit because when they did the event on October 30th out there, they actually did the ascensions and the descensions in accordance with the grade. So if you took a circle and you put it at the very bottom, or just on a hill in general, like he would ascend on one side, and then on the opposite half he would start descending. And so this time when he was ascending, it was random. So I think they started just to spread that out and do ascensions and descensions all over the place to cover that whole event up. And so he did the right curve descent and the left ascending, so there's like extreme opposites. Like that's the most opposite you could do. And so that's part of the stuff I'm talking about. Like if you fly one way, just fly opposite backwards, and then it's covered up. And so then he made a right turn, and then he did a circles at the 10:30 event spot, and I can think it was left-handed circles, but I didn't write that part down. Anyways, he was doing circles at the October 30th event spot, and then he left straight towards Geronimo and Los Alisos. And so that's part of what I was talking about, incorporating new damming events into a routine. So now he's done it again. That was such a unique event. How could you possibly do something so unique again and call it routine surveillance? And it had never happened before. Plus, I've sat outside for months. I would know. And so, but my word can't be taken. And so he left straight towards Geronimo and Los Alisos intersection. And that's where I have other videos of him where I chased him before, and it wasn't 2 helicopters, it was only him. And he did power circles out over Heroes Park, and one of the times he did power circles over 24-hour fitness in the medical buildings and the industrial buildings on Acero and Geronimo. And so now that's also incorporated into his routine. And so at 3:57, the Cessna copter showed up, and he was probably there before that, doing all the similar things around the October 30th area, because that's where I found him. And then at 5:11, there was, and for about 5 minutes before this, the Cessna copter was flying around, and I heard so I was looking at him, and then I heard helicopter sounds out behind the two-story house. And then eventually at 5:11, I saw a two-tone, medium-sized